This is a spaceship, a virtual spaceship, for traveling in time, fueled up and ready to go. Let's blast off on a journey to the Time Warp Tavern, a friendly pub with a difference. Join Russell and Lawrence there as they revisit their experiences of life as two young boys growing up in the 1960s.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
What will they be talking about today?
I think Barry Bucknell did that TV series of the same name.
Well, of course, Jack Warner did the Formative advert, didn't he?
That's right, he did, yeah.
Get it from your local handyman store. Do you know what? I've still got a Black & Decker drill.
Black & Decker. Yeah. Not Spear and Jackson number 3.
It could easily have been.
Remember Home Charm?
I remember the name. It's a strange concept now, isn't it? Just having a shop that sells wallpaper.
Yeah. Our earliest memories are just pre-Beatles, aren't they? It seemed like things were still stuck in the 50s.
Virgin Tommy Steele's and...
teen pop.
Yes, indeed.
It was the promise of what was to come. It was such an optimistic period.
Exactly.
What a great time to be born into. This was something I thought of the other day, actually. When you think about your childhood now, what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
Okay. Stomach aches.
Stomach aches? That's the first thing, is it?
Yeah, I don't know why. Stomach aches, Enos, Andrews, liver salts.
Yeah, my first memories are a bit less medicinal than that.
Oh, what do you remember then?
First thing I think of when I think of childhood, I would think holidays by the sea, buying comics,
Yep.
sweets, favourite TV programmes, watching trade test films.
Oh, yeah.
Pop music. Pirate radio.
Yeah. Well, I had an older brother and sister.
Yeah.
So when I was 5, my brother would be 10 and my sister was 12. So this is like early 60s.
Okay.
And they were just getting to that age where they could buy records, they could buy singles.
Yeah.
So I was quite lucky because they were bringing this stuff into the house and I was hearing it.
Yeah.
When She Loves You by the Beatles came out, and I just loved it when my fringe kind of dropped down over my eyes because I thought that made me look really cool.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I remember that when that came out, actually, because the sister of a boy I used to play with over the street, she had a copy of She Loves You single, and I absolutely craved it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was trying all sorts of things to try and get her to swap with me for something else, you know.
Swaps.
Well, you didn't have disposable money, did you? I mean, I was quite young at that point.
Yeah.
You didn't have, like, pocket money you could actually buy something off of somebody with.
Exactly.
I'll give you 5 comics for that.
Well, if you were collecting, like, picture cards...
Oh, yeah.
That you get with chewing gum...
Yeah.
That little kind of oblong slab of dusted chewing gum...
Oh, yeah.
You used to get,
yeah.
Which tasted fantastic for about half a minute, and then it tasted like chewing rubber.
That's right, yeah. Do you remember Bazooka Joe?
Yeah, with a little comic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I remember that. And so, like you say, there'd usually be like a picture card. So it was like Civil War.
Yeah.
So you'd have this big pile of cards, most of which were all the same ones, and show him what you got. And he would say, got it. Haven't.
There was like a limited series of 100 different cards, and you had 97 of them, and you could never get the other 3, could you?
Because they weren't stupid, were they?
And there were certain sets of cards. They were the sort of sexy ones. They were based on Batman or something like that, Man from U.N.C.L.E. And they were really boring ones as well, sets of authentic historical battles.
Some of those Civil War ones were really gory.
It was the same with comics, you know. You had good comics, interesting comics, and you had things like Commando.
Yeah, like in The Dandy, was it Shep?
Yeah.
Some old bloke with a beard in Scotland with a sheepdog.
Dull as ditchwater, weren't they? Sort of
yeah.
thing, you know. I remember Viz did the spoof, didn't they? Board a bin liner, yeah.
Those really boring stories where they rescue someone who's drowning in a river.
That's right, yeah. There's like a little moral to it, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And it was told in the driest possible way. Almost like a text story, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
that's rubbish because you want the bubbles.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Bring on the iron fish.
The Iron Eaters, do you remember that?
Oof. Now, That sounds vaguely familiar.
It was like a serialised science fiction thing. It was a bit sort of Quatermassy.
Right,
And they were like sort of tennis balls, I suppose.
right.
But they ate iron. And when they ate iron, they grew in size and got bigger.
Oh.
So they became like the size of houses eventually,
Oh, blimey.
and these children were charged with the task of stop these things.
And it's always children, isn't it?
Yeah. They've got the moral responsibility of the world, on their shoulders.
Well, because you could imagine yourself being that child, couldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose it was identification, wasn't it?
Yeah.
One of my most nostalgic kind of memories of childhood is Christmases.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait for that moment when I was able to open my presents, in the
Oh.
morning. I couldn't contain myself. It was all open in front of me, wrapping paper all over the floor and everything,
Yeah.
And I was completely
Yeah.
absorbed in it. But when I used to see what my parents got for Christmas, I used to think, I can't see what they get out of it, because I used to get like socks and things like that.
Or a shaving kit.
Yeah, and you think,
Yeah.
well, what can't you get something that's fun?
Surely you want toys.
Yeah. I used to wait until after Christmas dinner in the afternoon to open theirs, and I used to think, how can you contain yourself? Yeah.
How boring is that?
But of course, it related to the presents they got,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was almost like they knew as well. They'd almost made an arrangement between them. It's like, I'll get you those earrings and you get me that quarter of tobacco or something, It's like, or some socks.
There was always the toy to have, wasn't there, on a particular Christmas? I remember one year it was the Johnny 7.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely lusted after one of those and I never got it.
I never got
Too
one.
expensive.
But we had a friend just down the road whose family were obviously a bit better off.
Yeah.
And he would always get all the best.
Yes. Yeah. I had one of those friends as well.
Yeah. They're not really friends, are they?
No.
Bastards.
Yeah.
He got a Johnny 7 and he used to show it off. And,
that's right. It was huge, wasn't it? And it was loaded with gadgets and different attachments.
Got a hand grenade launcher. And
that's right.
It was a machine gun.
I used to look at it and see him using it. You wouldn't let him know that you knew this, of course, but you used to think, if I had one of those, like my life would be complete. That would be it.
Well, I remember one year I was lucky enough to get the Action Man space capsule.
Oh, yeah.
I was absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, when you did splashdown in the bath, when it returned from orbit, it used to leak, water would pour in.
Oh, yeah,
because it wasn't meant to go in the bath. And I thought, well, that's not right, because when they come back from space, they land in the ocean.
That was a big part of our childhood, wasn't it? The space race.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up
and
that.
And I remember Action Man, it's very good. It was based on the Mercury capsule. And Action Man had this brilliant silver spacesuit that he used to put on him. And it really reminded me of the lining you used to get in the Sugar Puffs packets.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the kind of like foil lining?
Yes, I do, yeah. To keep them fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other thing about Sugar Puffs was that once they'd been soaked in milk for a while, it smelled like wee-wee. Don't know if you ever noticed that?
Yeah, and it also coloured the milk, didn't it?
Yeah.
They used to go sort of grey, didn't it?
It did.
Grey milk.
It did.
I used to like those, remember those variety packs you used to get?
Oh, I love the variety packs. And one or two of them were slightly wider than the others for some reason.
Yeah, that's right.
So you get Rice
right,
Cools, Rice Krispies, Frosties.
Cornflakes in there, weren't there?
There would have been cornflakes. They're a bit boring, weren't they, cornflakes?
There might have been Special K.
Special K with a little milk and sugar, less than 250 calories. The
lot. Yeah. They were basically ricicles.
They were. But it was great because it was in miniature, and there's something about things being in miniature which is quite fascinating.
Yeah, but when you used to tip them into the bowl, they weren't quite enough, were they?
No, they weren't.
Were just about a portion, weren't they? And that was really childhood in a nutshell. It was never quite enough, was it?
Exactly.
And once you'd had the portion, it was all over before you knew it. We talked about this before. If you had a time machine, and you could go back to one point in time for a day, when would it be?
Oh, that's such a tough question.
You can only have one, though.
Yeah.
You could go back for a whole day.
Right, okay. I think I'd go back to 1965.
Okay. What's the logic there?
I associate that with schools programs in black and white on 405, which I found fascinating. And you still had Watch Your Mother, of course.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And the Welsh programme at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
BBC Cymru. Yeah, that was the thing to aim for, wasn't it? Being off sick with a cold. So you could watch all this stuff that normally passed you by when you were at school.
Okay, so straight away, it's November. It's pouring with rain. I wake up in the morning and there's just slightest hint of a bit of a throat. So Mum comes up to wake me up. Ready, time to get up. Oh, Mum, I'm not sure. I think I might have a bit of a... Oh, you got a bit of a throat? Yeah, I think I might have a bit of a throat. You're staying in bed, my lad. Yes!
Did you put on your sick voice?
Absolutely, the sick voice came out.
So was it a genuine bad throat then?
It was like half genuine, hoping to be genuine.
In the best possible sense, yeah.
I think I'd go with 65.
Okay. 1965 Time Machine.
Just like the Beatles would sort of just Day Tripper and
Oh, yeah.
the Small Faces.
Yeah.
It was all kind of just happening, wasn't it? And also My Generation by The Who.
And also, that was
exciting
probably the
now.
peak of pirate radio at that point.
Yeah.
One of the days I'd like to go back to in a time machine would be the day of the first moon landing.
Oh.
July 1969.
Ah.
Just to see myself sitting there with my dad
Yeah.
in our pyjamas at 2 a.m. watching the first moonwalk live on television.
Well, I'm jealous because I slept through all of that.
Oh,
I was desperate to see it, and they kept delaying it.
yeah.
And it got to about midnight, and I'll never forget, I was sitting in my bedroom at midnight, and I was listening to Radio Luxembourg. And for the very first time, they played In the Year 2525. And it was so spooky, that song.
So attached to that period in time, isn't it? That
Yeah.
very specific moment.
So I remember it got to about midnight, and I was feeling very tired. I thought, well, I'll just have a little lie down for half an hour, and then I'll get up again, and then we'll see. The next thing I know,
You slept right through it then.
my parents had zero interest.
Really?
They were walking on the moon.
Really?
It
Oh.
was like, that's out there somewhere. There's nothing we're interested in. We've got the shop.
I suppose
Stock
they
of
couldn't
business.
relate to it in terms of like their normal everyday life.
Exactly. It was
Right.
completely disconnected from there. So they had no interest. So I don't think they watched it. And they didn't really understand how interested I was in it.
So you had to make do with the sort of edited highlights the next
Yeah,
morning, did you?
yeah.
What a letdown.
I felt so disappointed. I've missed probably the most significant event
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah.
And I bloody missed it.
Yeah, another one for your time machine then.
Definitely.
But I can see why you want to go back to 1965 with all the pop shows exploding on television,
Yeah.
I was a great watcher of Top of the Pops quite early on, actually. Occasionally, I used to get to see Ready Steady Go when it didn't clash with something my parents were watching.
Yeah, I would see that. And what was the one that was on Saturday around about tea time? Was it
Thank You Lucky Stars.
Thank You Lucky Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And The Beat Room on BBC Two, that was another one. That was an advantage of having BBC Two at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great series. I mean, a lot of the acts were playing live in the studio, and it's all been wiped. Actually, I think I'd go back in time and try and save some of those programmes that have been lost.
Yeah.
I think one of the days I'd like to go back to with a time machine would be the first day I saw a colour TV.
Oh,
Such a mind-blowing thing.
can you actually remember the first time you saw it?
Yeah. Saturday, August the 3rd, 1968.
Oh, right.
I remember the occasion very well.
Well, there was no one else in my life at the time that had the remotest interest in it.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just absolutely magical that it'd taken that boring black and white image and suddenly it was the same image, and yet it took it to a new sort of
That's
level
right.
completely.
And they were prepared to spend all these hours of the day on BBC Two running tests for colour, basically. Yeah, I didn't know anybody else who had BBC Two back in the 60s. So there's no one you could actually talk about it to, It was very frustrating.
We didn't get it until quite late, about 67.
Yeah.
Only in black and white. And we used to watch Rowan Martin's Laughing.
Oh, yeah.
But the picture was really poor. But we struggled, determined to watch it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Everything on BBC Two seemed so exotic.
It did,
And
yeah.
new
That's right,
and
yeah.
modern.
We were lucky that we were able to get it.
Yes.
I didn't know how lucky at the time. I just thought
Yeah.
everyone could get this. So you took it for granted to some degree. And that's why I'd like to go back with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
Because I tie all this stuff in with childhood and that colour TV. It's all to do with science, technology and the space race.
Exactly. The jet age.
Yeah.
Concorde.
That's right.
The
That's
Apollo
right.
space program. It
Yeah.
all tied in. Evoluon.
Free space rockets in breakfast cereals.
Yeah.
Right. Get the time machine running now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Comics.
Oh.
They were a really big part of childhood, weren't they?
Oh, yes. I think I might have a photograph of Winker Watson on my phone.
Winker Watson. It sounds like a Viz character.
But he'd find himself in silly situations.
Well, they all did, didn't they? They all got into scrapes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, the American comics were exciting, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, well, they were really what got me into collecting seriously, as a result of the Batman TV series.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But with British comics, just before that,
Yeah.
I remember there was a peak around about the mid-60s when you got the sort of new wave of comics like Wham and Smash and Pow. They
I
were
remember
quite,
Wham.
quite sort of irreverent comics, weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
They were a bit punky in their attitude
Yeah.
towards
it was
authority,
That's right. And they were slightly glossy as well, weren't they?
Yeah, grimly fiendish.
Grimly fiendish, yes.
Yeah. He looked like Uncle Fester from the Addams
Yes,
Family.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Do you remember Potty Putty?
Yeah. How did we get onto that?
I'm not sure. But if you flattened it out and rolled it over your comic
Yeah.
and peeled it off, you'd get an imprint of
An engraving plate, yeah.
Yeah, Potty Putty in a little plastic green dome, and my mum chucked it away.
When you got to a certain age, in your childhood or probably in your teens, did your parents take it upon themselves to get rid of some of your treasured possessions?
Well, eventually they did. It wasn't until I left home.
Yeah.
And when I did that, loads of my stuff got chucked.
Did it?
Because my mum just assumed, oh, he's grown up, he's an adult now. He won't be interested in this. I'll just chuck all this.
My parents were a little bit more considerate. They wouldn't have thrown anything without consulting me.
Right.
But they did put pressure on me when I got into my teens. They thought, you don't need this anymore, do you? You're not going to look at it anymore.
Yeah.
As you went into the 1970s, we were going into our teenage years and adolescence. The landscape had changed, hadn't it?
Yeah.
We're just approaching the time when we wanted to start going to gigs.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first attempts to go into pubs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was very self-conscious about going into pubs. I had a couple of friends who looked a bit older and they had no problem with going marching in, but I felt really embarrassed about being in a pub when I was 16 or 17.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I felt very uncomfortable.
You thought you were going to get chucked out any second, didn't you?
Yeah.
Literally. Or worse, they would have rung the police already and you expected...
Rung your mum up.
That's right, yeah. There must have been a point when you didn't want to go shopping with your mum anymore, but you wanted to go shopping on your own.
Yes. I suppose probably when I was about 14.
Yeah.
Although at that stage I still didn't have much money. And then I went into a shop and bought a pair of loafers. Remember them?
Yeah.
And they were sort of like the last word in trendiness in 1972. And they cost me £5.
Ooh.
Whereas, anywhere else, a pair of shoes would be £3.50 or £4. But at least I could go to parties with my channel seam trousers and a Brutus shirt and my loafers.
You could be seen in the right gear. That's all that mattered, wasn't it?
You could see in the right gear. But before I got those, I used to steal my brother's shoes.
Probably when I got to about 12,
Yeah.
I would go through the motions of going shopping with my mum. But when we got to the town, I would take myself off. I'd say, I'll meet you in half an hour or something. And I would go to the record shop and I would look through all the racks of LPs that I couldn't afford to buy at that time, as a kid. So it was just when I was starting to take an interest in music,
Yeah.
I remember going to a youth club when I was just at the beginning of my teens. And it was so awkward.
Yeah.
They were selling soft drinks and you thought, oh, this is not what you want, is it?
No.
Yeah, bring on the time a couple of years later when I was brewing my own beer, those Tom Caxton kits.
Yeah.
There were lots of rituals and routines associated with childhood, weren't there, when we were growing up? One of those rituals, which was partly enjoyable and partly a chore, was going to visit relatives.
Yeah, it was mostly hard work, wasn't it?
Mostly hard work.
Yeah.
You sat there for like an afternoon or something, and your grandparents had got the tea tray out, with the cakes and cups of tea and that.
Yeah.
While the adults were talking about boring things,
Yeah. And a bit of gossip about that family down at number 34.
And to sort of accompany that, they'd just go and make another cup of tea, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
There's always another cup of tea and perhaps a biscuit.
And I'd be sitting there as a 5-year-old thinking, oh, God.
Yeah.
Can't we talk about the Beatles or Basil Brush or something?
Yeah, but just as you were leaving, your nan would slip you a little bit of money into your hands quietly.
Don't tell your mum, here's a shilling. And if your
Wasn't
mum
it?
caught her
Yeah.
doing it,
Yeah.
don't give him that. And
Yeah,
it's
that's the reason you went, wasn't it, really? You know, you were sitting there while you were having your glass of orange squash and you were waiting for that moment to come when you thought, am I going to get something? You know, so, and of course, you straight up the road afterwards, you'd be in the first newsagents buying comics with it, you know.
And then the other one would be, it was coming up to your birthday and you go and see your Auntie Nora or Grandma and say, we've got something for you. Is this going to be, the Thunderbirds toy or something like that? I've knitted you a jumper. That's no good. Because what you really want is Action Man or a Pez dispenser.
Yeah, you didn't want something that was your mum's taste.
No.
Having to be seen to like what you've just been given. That was all part of the ritual, wasn't it?
Well, getting my briefcase ready for school was a ritual. My mum would come and give me my peanut butter sandwiches for lunch.
Peanut butter sandwiches,
and a chocolate wafer. Now, on a good day, it might be a Kit Kat or a Bandit.
Yeah.
On a bad day, it would be a Blue Ribbon or a Taxi. Or somewhere in the middle would be a wagon wheel. I wasn't sure about wagon wheels.
I like the fact you've got a grading system for it.
Yeah, so if it was a Bandit, I'd be walking on clouds.
Right, yeah.
And also a glass Schweppes bottle with orange squash in it.
Oh, yeah. Well, food was a big part of growing up, wasn't it?
Yes.
Although it was still a case of that post-war generation of our parents, you know, making do.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, there's one of these TV chefs on at the moment. Can't remember his name.
Well, they're all interchangeable, aren't they? You know?
And he sort of says, I'm going to show you how you can make something really, really cheap just with leftovers from what you've had over the weekend.
Right.
So he opens up the fridge and says, so what have we got in here? Oh, well, we've got 2 fillets of Scotch salmon. We've got some truffles.
Just happened to have leftover.
Just a little bit of prime sirloin steak left over. And then he'll knock something up.
But, you know, if you got a cookery program like Fanny Craddock or something, you know, she'd be completely out of touch with what the ordinary housewife would be doing at home. So she'd put on this kind of really elaborate spread of really prissy dinner party fare.
Yeah.
You'd be doing it for days because you didn't have all the labour-saving devices you got now.
Well, yeah.
There's no instant foods other than like OXO cubes and things like that.
Indeed. Yeah. Now, Katie would kind of whisper to the camera, I'm just getting the OXO ready for Philip's boss is here tonight.
Yeah, like it was a complete meal in itself.
Yeah.
But this was the other thing, of course. In those days, you had set meals on set days, didn't you?
Of course, yeah.
It was just like an unwritten law, wasn't it? It was something that you just did.
Yeah, well, very often it would be, if you'd had a roast dinner on the Sunday, Monday would be cold cuts.
That's right,
The leftovers from the Sunday roast lunch.
Sometimes my mum would do a shepherd's pie based around the chopped up meat that was left over.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we get to Tuesday, you might have sausage and mash on a Tuesday.
That's
possibly.
right, yeah. Tuesday to Thursday was sort of like the workman-like days, weren't they?
Yeah. So sausage and mash.
Boiled bacon and peas pudding, that was another one we used to have.
Ooh,
I think it was Wednesday we had that.
Yeah.
Friday, my dad used to bring us fish and chips sometimes.
Yeah, definitely fish and chips. Saturday, baked beans on toast with Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was dinner at lunchtime and tea in the evening.
Yeah, lunchtime was dinner.
Yeah, nothing too exotic.
No. I remember my dad would never eat foreign muck.
Foreign muck, yeah. What did that consist of then?
Oh, anything with like pasta in it or spaghetti.
I suppose it's anything that wasn't meat and 2 veg, was it?
Basically, yeah.
The only type of pasta we had would be spaghetti in tomato sauce in tins.
Yeah. You might get a risotto. That's probably the closest you get.
That's exotic.
That's pushing the boat out a bit, isn't it?
It would for my parents.
Remember Knorr soup? KNORR.
Yeah.
And it used to come in a packet. It was like dried powder. It was disgusting. Saturday mornings, Mum would go shopping. And for lunch, we would have Knorr soup, which I absolutely hated.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like eating sawdust.
I remember tasting those Vesta meals when they came out in the late 60s. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Like chow mein and curries and stuff like that. My parents hadn't bought one or anything like that. I think I was given a taste of one from a friend. They used to taste so artificial. And it put me off of trying those things for years, you know. Actually, you were just talking about Saturday tea times. And I was just thinking about another ritual associated with that, the teleprinter.
The football pools.
Yeah.
Was it Littlewoods?
Zetas. Littlewoods, Vernon's. Another thing which you hoped you were going to sort of like make some money from, but never did. But my mum and dad had premium bonds.
Premium bonds, yeah, I had premium bonds.
Did you?
My parents would buy me a premium bond as a birthday present,
Oh,
actually.
right, okay.
It might have been a pound or a guinea,
Yeah,
possibly.
a guinea, yeah.
If you wanted to buy a posh suit in those days, it wouldn't be measured in pounds, would it? It'd be a tweed suit, 12 guineas.
Yeah, guineas, yeah, absolutely, that's right,
that means,
yeah.
oh, posh.
And, after Saturday, that whole thing about going through Sundays as a kid, when everything was closed, that was something you really had to endure, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got through what we call the dead zone.
The endurance, yeah.
You'd got through that, and you had the Saint.
That's right, 7:25.
Yeah. Sunday night at the London Palladium with Brucey.
Oh, yeah, that was a real ritual, wasn't it?
Wow.
The very end of music hall, wasn't it?
Tiller Girls, probably Jimmy Tarbuck. And then you'd have some Eastern European acrobatic act.
The amazing Grigori or something, and Susan, whoever she was.
And you got that sense that when the latest pop group came on,
Yeah.
the old-timer acts were a bit cynical.
This isn't going to last.
Yeah.
It was notable, wasn't it? Because you had a band which was like up to the minute.
They were surrounded by all these other acts like Tommy Trinder and
Yeah, and Billy Dainty.
Billy Dainty, yeah.
Yeah, Dickie Henderson. Yeah.
Yeah, he just wanted to be American, didn't he? Dickie
Yeah,
Henderson?
he had that transatlantic.
Yeah,
Well, it's a bit like Brucey. He always wanted to be Sammy Davis Jr., didn't he?
yeah. You can't imagine Sammy Davis Jr. saying, "Oh, I wish I could be like Bruce Forsyth."
Well, my dad always used to say that on Sunday night at the London Palladium, if you saw an American act,
Yeah.
you knew that their career was on the wane. So you'd get somebody like Danny Kaye would appear,
Yeah,
who was like a massive star, but he'd appear, and it's if they have to come to England to try and get a bit of recognition, then that's it, they're finished.
they always topped the bill, didn't they? They were always kind of like.
Yeah.
So I suppose they felt that they were guaranteed a good reception,
You
but
get someone like Bob Hope, that'd be quite a big deal, actually.
it would, wouldn't it? Yeah. But there was a lot of the others, which you might call like third-rate American acts, that come over here, and people would fawn over them. And you think, "Oh, what's great about them?"
Yeah,
What about children's programmes on telly then? The ritual of getting home from school every day to see them.
Okay, favourites. Lost in Space. On a Friday after school, I'd have to go rushing down in my slippers to the sweet shop on the corner,
Right.
buy a Fry's chocolate cream and a quarter of wine gums, and I'd come back and I'd consume those whilst watching. I'd be sorted.
It was the end of the week as well. That was more special, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, coming up to the weekend.
Yeah, just a few years earlier than that on Fridays.
It's to rush home, 5:25, quick draw McGraw.
There seemed to be this emphasis on puppet type entertainment.
Oh,
didn't there?
yeah, and loads of them, yeah.
And Space Patrol.
Oh, yeah.
Thursday, 5:25, Refusion.
Yeah, it was around about the time of the Gemini space program.
Yeah, you see, my two conflicting poles of interest were space and pop music.
Yeah.
Fireball XL5, you see, I loved it. But before video recorders, it was a toss-up between that and Pinky and Perky.
See,
Yeah.
for me, it would have been no contest because it would have been space.
Well, there was one programme I couldn't miss at any cost. Of course, mid-60s, very big one. Batman, Adam West.
Oh, well, I remember being in tears one day. I came home from school
Yeah.
and Mr. Battersby, who's a painter and decorator, was decorating the front room.
Oh, yeah.
He'd finished his day's work, but
Right.
he'd covered everything in white sheets,
Oh, yeah.
including the television,
Oh.
which he was going to leave in place until the next day when he came back.
Yeah.
I said, but Batman's on. Well, no, you can't see Batman. And I had a bit of a tantrum. So my parents relented.
Yeah.
Can't not watch Batman,
It'd be like the end of the world, wouldn't it?
Oh.
I remember Batman had just started in that summer of 66.
We were booked to go away for a 2 weeks holiday, so I missed 4 full episodes, and
There's no way you could record it in those days,
No.
That was the thing.
Ah,
routine was everything to kids, wasn't it?
definitely.
I was just thinking the 60s, it was like the age of
Technology, wasn't it?
Gadgets were the thing, weren't they?
Also, with technology and the space race,
Yeah.
we were sort of primed early on from childhood.
because you had all these different things which referred to space, didn't you? Like Fireball XL5
Yeah.
and Telstar.
The Tornadoes record,
I mean, that's from my really early memories of
childhood.
just before Beatlemania hit.
It was still a black and white world, wasn't it?
Yeah, it changed overnight, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's like somebody turned the colour control up.
Yep.
I mean, it really was a revolution, wasn't it?
We were lucky to be living in that age, weren't we?
I think so. Yeah,
Talk about this stuff forever.
absolutely.
I probably will.
Oh, don't forget this. In the lunar module, when they landed on the surface of the moon, they had this panel, and it had all these circuit breakers, so that they could push it in, disconnect the circuit, and pull it out. Because all the space signals was quite long.
And there we must leave them. Time to go home now. Why not pop in again soon to revisit some more old memories at the Time Warp Tavern. Last orders, please.